how long will repair take after injury? And just what are your thoughts on that question? I know there's a lot of different perspectives on that, and I'm sure that's actually not an easy question to answer. But when someone asks it, how do you respond, basically?
It's not an easy question, but it is a really important question because you're right. Like I hear that one a lot. In fact, almost every couple that I do an initial intake with, that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I say about it is that when we're in a state of trauma, shock, threat, we go to black and white thinking. Okay? And that question itself is set up in such a way that it's a little bit based on some polarized thinking. Like, one day repair will happen. Check. There's been rupture and then there will be repair.
Yeah.
And it will be a 0 or a 1, right? And it's not that way. So there are degrees of repair. And actually the felt sense of repair is going to ebb and flow, maybe for the rest of your life. Because rupture and repair is not unique to sex addiction and betrayal trauma. It's the human experience. In fact, you could see the gospel through the lens of rupture and repair. So it's not so if we're in polarized thinking of we're in rupture and we need to get to repair, that's a little bit unhelpful. So we're going to be moving toward repair. We're going to experience degrees of repair for some time until we get back to a place where this wound isn't so raw and sensitive that it's running our lives. Okay. Now, how long will that take? The standard answer in the field is 3 to 5 years. Okay. I have a bit of a different take on that. Okay. Because the more traditional models of treatment were set up such that the partners are sort of separated from each other initially. And it was thought that you're not going to do marital therapy or couples work around this until you've first done individual work. And in the very traditional models here, you might go a year or 18 months or 2 years individually before you ever really start couples work.
Mm-hmm.
That's just so painful. It's excruciating for a lot of couples. Now, I will say a lot of betraying partners or addicted partners, they actually kind of like it because they get to avoid some really hard conversations. They get to avoid facing a lot of shameful, topics and that sort of thing. But here's the deal. I created a model called couple-centered recovery. And I believe that if you take the most primary relationship in your life, your marriage, and you put it at the center of the recovery process, it will be messier, it will be harder, it will cost you more up front, but it will speed this process up because a lot of the stuff that you're not going to do until 18 months or 2 years in, start it right away. Not right away. Okay. I mean, there is a progress.
Can I ask a clarifying question too with that?
Yeah.
Would you say that model is done best with a professional helping them through that? So it's not something they're just doing on their own, gung-ho, running in, no idea what they're doing. They're just going to try it. That's not what you're suggesting.
No. I have a whole model here. In fact, last week I had 2 full days of training with other clinicians and coaches in this model. So, I mean, there's a very clear clinical path around this because issues around safety and vulnerability and power imbalance and boundary, I mean, all of that has to be thought through. But I do believe our experience is I don't have peer-reviewed research on this yet, although I do have some doctoral students who are hopefully going to be coming out with some soon. But anecdotally, what I can say is that I've seen couples who start with that kind of relational emphasis early on actually cut that 3 to 5 year timeline in half and experience healing a lot sooner.
Yeah. A lot of times when I hear this question, what I hear underneath it, and I'll, be honest to say typically from men that I'm in group with, what they're really asking is how long is she going to be mad at me? Or how long until we get back to quote unquote normal?
Yeah.
and I try to tell them, well, your normal wasn't that good, so getting back to normal isn't the goal. Or they're asking, when will we get back to the regular amount of sex that I would like or prefer? And a lot of that, I try to help them understand, depends on you, and it depends on the work you're doing.
Yeah.
It depends on how well you're learning empathy. It depends on how much you are owning what you've done and recognizing the harm, and how radical you're being about your recovery to not continue acting out behavior, so that they learn to see, or they start to see safety in you and reliability and dependability. And then some of it is totally out of your control, because what happens in a relationship, when there is rupture, it taps into that betrayed spouse's story as well. And they may have other elements from their family of origin, from their childhood, from other relationships that could be compounding the problem and the trust issues. And so you are part of the equation. That's what I try to encourage. Like, you're asking how long, and I want you to know that a lot of the how long is up to you and the level of work you're doing, how serious you're taking it. And there's another part of the how long that you have no control over, because you do have a spouse that's their own person and is on their own pathway. And all you can do is everything within your power to set them up to take their journey as well. But their journey may have its own timeline, depending on what's complicated this for them, what they're working through. And so it's an invitation I always give to these men of like, if you would just lean all in to your recovery and to understanding empathy and growing your relationship muscles, you give yourself the best opportunity to shorten that timeline to get to a healthier place in your relationship. But some of it is not in your control, because you're talking about two people. And so anytime we're asking a timeline question where, like you said, Jake, we want to put a check mark out there to go, well, at 2 years, 6 months, and 14 days, we will reach this new place where we no longer have pain or struggle. Like, well, it's not that clean and simple. There's a process. It's a journey. It's ongoing. But again, if we'll lean into what we can control and give it our very highest level of attention, we can, I think, impact that timeline more than we realize.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you just described there is, I talk about living the serenity prayer. I mean, you just articulated, right? Accept the things that I can't change. I can't control that. There's a part of this but I've got to have the courage to change the things I can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And so much
100%.
of life is that control what you can control.